Sons of Kryos.
Hi, I'm Jeff.
And I'm Judd,
And we are
the Sons of Kryos. And our show is about play.
And everything that happens at the gaming table.
Sometimes we will venture under the gaming table.
Sometimes we'll go to the fridge.
Or the bookshelf.
And sometimes we'll go to the computer.
But we're always going to try to keep our show centered around that game table. That's our home. That's what the show is about. That's what interests us.
This is Malcolm Craig from GMs Studios, and you're listening to Sons of Kryos. And if you're not listening to it, what are you doing in my house?
Hey, everybody, and welcome to our 11th show.
January 15th, 2006.
It's the new year.
Welcome to the new year, yeah, no doubt. We've got a good show for you today. We're going to cover 5 topics. We already did our mission statement. We can check that one off. Ka-check. We're going to do our top 5 gaming moments of 2005.
You have a checklist over there?
No, dude, I'm all about this. I've got my Franklin Day Planner out. It's on.
Nice.
Then we're going to do, Jeff is going to do a GMs Tools with maps. And then I'm going to talk about kickers, because Jeff asked me to talk a little bit about kickers. He has had some experience with it lately.
Help me!
And then we're going to talk about using a forum, using a gaming forum, and that's something I know a little bit about. So we're gonna talk about that. There have been some people, especially in the Ithaca area, who have some reticence about using online material and getting involved, and I think online community making is really interesting. So
We also are going to talk a little bit about some interesting game moments at our tables last year. Paul Tevis from Have Games Will Travel spoke about his top 5 games, and he asked other people to talk about their top games. But I don't know if we're really about the top games, so we're going to talk about our top 5 gaming moments.
Fantastic, Jeff. What did you come up with? I can't read upside down, so I don't see what you've got.
That's good, man, because then I wouldn't have to talk to you about it. You just read my stuff. My best one, actually.
You want to start with best, or you want to stop at 5 and work your way down?
Let's start with 5.
Listening. All right, let's start with 5.
Let's start with 5 and work our way up to number 1.
Okay, what's your 5?
So my 5th one is actually at your table, Joe.
Damn right it is. I was wondering if my game wasn't on that top 5 somewhere. I was going to throw your iPod at you and just walk out of the table.
Don't throw my iPod, dude.
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, it was at your table. The Burning Wheel game,
Fantastic.
particularly.
I'm honestly very flattered.
Judd has usually a weekly game that we play in.
The holidays have just eviscerated our schedules.
That happens. But
so what was the moment?
The moment was actually my character in Judd's game is a dwarf, and another player of ours also plays a dwarf, and we're kind of connected in a way. His character is a bit of a drunkard and tends to cause a little bit of trouble.
It's not like madcap fun Christopher Lloyd and Taxi drunk. It's like there's still vomit in his beard in the afternoon when he sees the Elven Queen drunk.
Yeah.
It's not pretty. One of the things, when Mario said he was going to play a drunk, I was really reticent, because that can really be like a madcap shticky thing, and I really didn't want that. But wow, it's really ugly, and it's just an ugly thing to see.
He was a great character to interact with.
Yeah.
But as time went on in the game, it was like, oh my gosh, I have to really watch out for him and make sure he doesn't throw up on the Elven Queen's feet.
No doubt.
So as time went on and he became somebody that I had to be more concerned with, I finally found a way to try and nip him of being an alcoholic. His character, not Mario. Mario's not an alcoholic.
Not an alcoholic at all.
And I brought him to my character's home, and I I had hired somebody to go out and get some poison.
Right.
Buy a bottle of poison.
And you used the burning wheel rules, and you had a resources roll, and we made up a name for it.
I spent a lot of my money in that.
It was like called the Dragon
it was
Root or something.
No, it was like Tears of the Dragon or
Tears
Blood
of the Dragon. Okay,
something like that.
It was cool.
So he came to my house, and I trapped him in one of a vault I had in the basement.
Yeah.
And I left him with food and water, and I kept him there for a few days. And near the end, I stopped giving him food, and then I put the supposedly poisoned bottle of alcohol in the room with him.
And he drank it.
Well, no, he didn't. He didn't drink it. No,
really?
He smashed it. Because I was basically making him choose between, the alcohol, which I told him would kill him.
Right.
If you drink this, it's going to kill you. How important is the alcohol to you?
Right.
And he smashed the bottle and, raged around his cell for a little bit. And when he passed out later on, he burnt something in there.
Yeah, he burnt the tapestry you gave to him.
Yep. And then
cool.
we pulled him out later on.
What about that moment is what did it for you, Jeff? I'm just...
What did it for me was that the character interaction up until that point had always been overshadowed by Mario's character's drunkenness.
Right.
And this really
confronted it.
It was confronted it, and it really, made a crossroad, a fork in the path.
Yeah. Those are important moments.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
What's number 4?
Number 4 is actually a moment at a LARP.
Okay.
The Heroes Trek, which I play and help run a little bit of.
Mm-hmm.
I was playing an army orc,
mm-hmm. and we had captured a human prisoner. And there were a bunch of other orcs around, and we had... And the Heroes Trek orcs, you guys do a full-on makeup job.
Oh,
You really look...
Head to toe and makeup. We had these masks that were made by one of the game masters
mm-hmm.
for the orcs, and they're beautiful.
Yeah.
And the whole outfit is just, it takes you a while. It takes you probably a half hour to get into the costume because there's so much stuff.
There will be a link to the Heroes Trek site so you can take a look at it. So what happened? So you had captured a human.
Yeah, we had captured a human, and we had him tied up and laying next to a tree, and we were just... Everybody was talking around, playing orcs. None of the heroes were around. This was all cast members. Uh-huh. But we were role-playing the whole time as our characters. And just the role-play that came out of these orcs and their interaction with their prisoner was really awesome. It was great. And unfortunately, the heroes weren't there to see it. And it wouldn't have happened when the heroes were there either because we would have been busy fighting them.
Right.
We might have had a little bit, but the interactions of, us picking on this human.
And that's an interesting thing about LARPing to think about is how can you get the players there? It's like, is that... that's really cool, and you guys had fun, and the NPCs need to have fun too.
Yeah.
But how can you pull the players into that moment? It's just an interesting thing for future shows to think about.
It's tough when you have the bad guys all there,
LARPing is a really tough medium. It's something that really kind of fascinates me. Cool.
But that was a great moment.
Nice.
So, number 3 is a tabletop game that I run.
Okay.
A D20 tabletop game
mm-hmm.
with a homebrew setting. And it had been a war that had been building up for quite a while, and the PCs had come to the big bad guy, and he was an undead king,
mm-hmm.
and there were a group of 5 or 6 of them, and one of the players was really kind of mentioning that he felt rather useless in this whole situation, and once it had turned to combat, because he didn't have a weapon that could affect the creature.
Right.
He was an archer.
Right.
And when it came to the battle, he just kind of kept shooting arrows at this undead,
knowing that he couldn't affect it.
Not really doing much. And then finally he kind of got the idea in his head that this king's power came from a crown that he wore. So he ended up trying to shoot the crown off the king's head.
Very nice.
He needed an awesome roll. He needed a nat 20. He rolled it, got the king's crown off of his head, and everybody was jumping around the table cheering.
Fun.
And it was his bright shining moment, and that he was playing the character that supposedly couldn't affect the creature, and he had the biggest effect on the whole combat.
And good on you for making that happen as the GM. I mean, some GMs would have really stifled that.
Like the crown was glued to his head, and
he's got a clip on the crown, and it's just been like, ugh, and not let
it's
the players.
It's been there for 10,000 years. It's not going to come up. No,
right. Cool. Number two.
Number two is in the same game.
Okay.
It actually happened before then. One of the characters that was playing in the game had taken a flaw feat that I had made up called Dark Fate.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of Dark Fate flaws in other games, but basically she had built it up that she was going to die in this war, and that there was going to be some dark champion that she was going to be killed by.
Right.
And we have been playing this game for a little over a year now, and been building.
That's a good amount of time.
Yeah, and been building up with that Dark Fate for the whole time. And when the armies came to the gates of this undead city, her character went out to parlay with some of these undead, and the Dark Champion was there.
Nice.
And
she died.
They threw it down. Yeah, they fought right there.
Awesome.
And she lost horribly.
So you killed a female character.
I did.
How fascinating, Jeff. I think we've stumbled on a really interesting issue. Tell me about your mother.
I killed all my mother's characters. No, my mother doesn't play role-playing games.
I'm
Sorry.
joking. I was just getting Freudian on you. But I think what's really cool about that death in particular is that she was telling you. I mean, by taking the Dark Fate flaw, that's that's kind of like the player saying, "Listen, this is how I want to go."
Yeah.
And she went. Was the player happy with the death?
I think at first everybody was just shocked because there had been so much build up to it.
Right.
And honestly, I didn't expect the fight to happen right there.
You just wanted a parlay.
Yeah, I was gonna,
but the
I was
player
gonna
threw
rub
down.
her a little
bit. The player
bit,
threw down,
and she decided to just go for it right there.
Nice. I also liked that the supposedly good living person disrupted the parlay. Like the undead were just ready to talk,
Yeah.
But it was the human who was like, "No, we're not parlaying."
Yeah,
I think that's kind of fun.
It was really cool, and everybody was like, oh. At first, everybody was too shocked, but later on they were like, "Oh, wow, cool."
Yeah, that's very cool. Nice. And what's number one?
Number one is actually another game that I ran for about a year's time as well.
Yeah.
The superhero game.
Yeah.
Yep. And this campaign was run with some players in the local area, and then a couple of them moved away. I believe I've talked about this on previous podcasts.
When we talked about ending games and finite games, yeah.
Yep. And this was the last game. The players had all come together on a holiday, and
there was this was the first game in a long time. You guys haven't played in a while because
I think probably
moved
4
away.
months or more than that actually, and they had. Two of the players moved to Pennsylvania and came back for the holidays.
And you got to finish it.
And we got to finish it.
What a rare gift to be able to... I mean, not a rare... I mean, people finish games all the time, but I that's a real sticking point for me, so that's great.
The thing that was so great about that is just... and I don't even know exactly if it was me or if it was like the whole table or if it was just fate, but everything just... everything was in a row. All the ducks were in order, and it was beautiful. The ending was wonderful. I had been fretting about it and planning for it for months,
right?
Because I really wanted to end this game.
Did it end the way you thought it would, or did the player
It didn't end the way I thought. I mean, it went kind of in the same direction, but it was just enough different to really shock me and amaze me.
Good. As the GM, I think that's a great sign when you're shocked and amazed by where the game has ended up.
I mean, the players did things that changed it.
Absolutely.
And it was awesome.
Well, I mean, there are people out there who are of the gaming philosophy that they get to have they're shooting for an endpoint.
Right.
Whatever you want to call it, illusionism or railroading or whatever term you want to use. So yeah, I think it's really cool that you got to this great satisfying endpoint, and it was very player authored, and everybody felt like they had a hand in it. Yeah. Very cool.
Awesome. All right, Judd, what's your top 5, man?
Top 5. Man, I gamed a lot this year. Holy cow!
I know you did. You're a madman.
2004 and 2005 have been huge gaming years for me. So
you're gaming like twice a week.
Sometime. What will happen is I'll go a couple weeks without gaming, and then I'll have like a 3-game weekend or something. You know, so it's pretty well documented. I mean, I'm not exactly shy about posting what's going on. So 2005, what was cool? Number 5 has got to be gaming Under a Serpent's Sun with Luke. It was the Burning Wheel Revised release party in New York City. I went there with a good friend of mine named Jason, and the hardcore people who were left at 3 in the morning. We got to play Under a Serpent's Sun in this pre-generated scenario with pre-gen characters is what I mean. And it was so dark. It's just this dark apocalyptic setting, and we were all really our nerves were frayed and raw enough just to like play that setting right to the hilt, and we really did.
You started at 3 in the morning.
3 in the morning, and we went till like 7. And when we left, like the city was just waking up. And
that's like being in high school again.
It was very high school, and it was very cool. It was like high school, but if my mom had ever heard what was happening in that game, I mean, just the domestic violence and backstabbing and murder, like not like, oh, I kill another character, like murder. It was just it was heinous. And like it turns out my character, I think, was the only decent human being at the table, maybe the only human being at the table. It was just nasty.
Wow.
Really, really, really cool. Good stuff. Fun game. And I think the frayed raw nerves of having a bunch of Burning Wheel fans at 3 in the morning was definitely part of it. Very, very cool.
Nice.
Number 4 has got to be my Burning Wheel game. There was one game that only 2 players were at. The guy who plays the orc, who has asked that his name not be mentioned online, so I'm going to honor that request.
Fair enough.
And Jim and my buddy Jim Del Rosso, who was playing a mercenary captain. And Jim and the orc player had asked that they had mentioned that they were going to go drinking at their next opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
And nobody showed up to the next game because of scheduling conflicts but them. So I was like, well, I guess we know what we're doing. We're going drinking. And there was this just crazy kind of off game where they drank. They got this great kind of low-key game where they drank and these ghosts from their beliefs and instincts showed up. And it was just really, really, really cool. I've been running such high-octane push the conflict, push games, that to have it was a game that made me at the table very uncomfortable. I was very uncomfortable GMing it, but it reminds me of those old shows, of those old X-Men comics where the X-Men kids would like play softball, and those are some of the coolest issues. And it was just really cool. It was just a really low key, interesting. This stuff still happened. There was still conflict, but. It was like a stoppage point. I really like that. I've got to start employing that in my games a little more, just like taking a breather and chilling out, you know? I don't have to be go all the time. And I've got to keep that in mind. So that game was a valuable one for me.
Nice.
Number 3 was at last year's Dreamation. Again, a late night game, and I got to play Mountain Witch run by Tim who wrote it. And it was kind of an earlier incarnation of it. I believe the rules were pretty much all complete, but it wasn't published yet. And it was just a crazy group. It was like me and Clinton R. Nixon and Keith Stankowski and Vincent Baker and my buddy Rob and Joshua. And it was just a nutty group, and nutty in a good way. And it was just a lot of fun. And me and Vincent have this crazy chemistry when we're gaming with one another. And it's just a great game. It's a game that I bought at Gen Con, and I haven't run myself yet, and I really need to. It's really a great game for gamers who have never gamed with each other to play with, because the game is all about trust, and gaming with new people is all about trust. So that was really fascinating, to be playing this game about trust with people who you don't quite trust yet. I knew all those guys from online, but I didn't know them really at all.
Right. So
that was really neat. That was just a cool game where like game reflected reality and reinforced the game, and it all came together in this really crazy just conclusion.
It was the game as well as the players that really set this one for you.
I think it was this big symbiotic relationship where like the system was reinforcing what we were feeling, and what we were feeling was reinforcing the system, and that was really cool. I was really digging that. So if you got a bunch of new players, Mountain Witch is a neat choice. I like that game a lot.
Yeah, I remember after you had played it actually at Dreamation, you were like really really hyped on it.
I'm really pumped. And the book is beautiful. The book came out. It's just a gorgeous book.
Yeah, it came out at Gen Con, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Cool.
The last two, number 2 and number 1 on my list are both primetime adventures. One was a primetime adventure that I played in Massachusetts when I went to visit Vincent and his family and stayed at Josh and Carrie's house. It was very nice. And we played this primetime adventures game, and it was just great. It was just the setup, and primetime adventures is such a great pick up and go game. I'm really a fan of it. I got to play. I think I was playing Vincent's father, and he was a girl who was kind of involved in the gangster scene because it was like Prohibition era, but not quite Prohibition. And not quite Prohibition, but it was like this we kind of took a sideways route to history. It was like we were smuggling something called Quicksilver, but nobody knew what Quicksilver was, and we never defined it. And it was just really cool. I really like the interplay that the way Vincent and I push on each other when we game. It's really, really cool. Just a lot of fun. I don't even know. It's just there are these scenes we have where we just get right to the heart of it and just push right past where we thought the game was going to be about.
Right.
And that was really fun. And Clinton, it's always fun to watch Clinton totally self-destruct his characters at the table. He pushes his characters to the point of self-destruction and back, and that was a lot of fun. So that was cool, especially for a one-shot, but really for any game.
Cool.
And my number 1 game that I'm really sorry I didn't get a chance to play a second session of was Bounty ... Hunters. I got together with
Primetime Adventures as well, right?
Primetime Adventures again,
yep.
And we made this reality show about a bunch of schlubs who were going to become bounty hunters through the reality show's training.
And this is the one my wife played in.
It was your wife and my girlfriend Johnnicky and Brett and 2 people who I had never met before.
Awesome.
And everybody came together and really got it right away. They got setting stakes. They got fan mail. They just got it. And the game was really solid. Like there were so many cool moments for every player. And it all came together in this really wonderful way in the end. I'm amazed. What's really cool about Primetime Adventures is when you realize how much player input everybody has, you think this cannot possibly work. There is no way we're going to come together with a cohesive whole, and come away with a show that makes sense. And it just does. It's just there's fairy dust in that book or something. It's just great. I'm just really amazed with the way that show came together. And it always ends up with a show where we walk away saying, why isn't TV this cool? And that's the show that I wish I had your little iPod recorder on the table, that show. Because that game was my favorite gaming moment of 2005. Wow. And, of course, made all the more special because Johnnicky was there. I mean, sharing that with my girlfriend is really cool. And I think that was a game where she really walked away saying, wow, okay, I think, I see what you're getting at. That was really fun. And she was also the interesting thing about that is Johnnicky was working with a lot of group projects at school, in grad school. And so she was thinking a lot about group dynamics and what makes a group work and collaborative effort. And that's what Primetime Adventures is all about. It's all about the collaborative effort. So just a cool game all around. I mean, I really want to finish that season.
My wife has been really wondering when that game's going to happen again. She had so much fun.
I'm going to get on the email horn and bug everybody about it because I've got everybody's email, and it's just a matter of really, really pushing on everybody and doing it.
Nice.
So very cool. Those are my top 5 gaming moments of 2005.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good year.
Yeah, it was a good year.
Good year for gaming, man.
Yep.
Hi, this is Paul Tevis from Have Games Will Travel, and you're listening to the Sons of Kryos. It's got to be big. It'll rain blood.
So I think maybe we should talk about kickers next.
Want to talk about kickers?
Kickers?
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
What are kickers?
Now, is this where you go up to your gaming table and kick one of your players?
I think that's called something else.
Damn, I've been doing it wrong.
Yeah,
I tell you.
You're way off. You're way off.
That's my problem.
I had a couple kicking moments in 2005 too. I think that's a different show where a player kicked me and I kicked them and
Jerry Springer Gamer.
Oh, dude, it was
episode.
It was bad. That's a whole other topic. I'm not. You know what? That wound is so fresh. I'm not quite ready to talk about it.
All right, let's get back to kickers.
Well, you started the kicking.
Sorry.
Okay, what are kickers? Kickers are when a player authors the first scene of their character's game. It's really that simple.
Okay.
So you go to the player and they've got the character made, and you say, okay, now the final step of making this character is making your kicker. And they get to author their players, their character's first scene. Now, this was originated, as far as I can tell, in Sorcerer by Ron Edwards. But it's something that we've all done. This is not like some new thing. Ron just put a name to it and formalized it in his system. Everybody does this. Whenever you look to your players at the end of the game and say, geez, guys, where do you want to start your next game? That's an informal kicker.
Do you think everybody does that?
I don't think everybody does that every game. I know I don't in traditional gaming. But people do it. Or even, you know what another informal kicker is? Another informal kicker is whenever you listen to the players, like when they're smoking on the porch or having pizza after the game, and they talk about what they want in the next game, and you as the GM incorporate that, that's kind of an informal kicker. That's not a real kicker, but that's an informal kicker. That's where kickers...
It's incorporating aspects of a kicker.
Yes.
Right.
That's where kickers came from. That's where they were born. Ron saw this happening, I'm assuming. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I'm going to guess that Ron saw this happening and said, you know what? When I incorporate things that my players want into the opening scene of the next game, they're pumped and they're invested in the next game. So why not just write that right into the rules? And kickers were born.
So how do you write, or how do you create a good kicker?
Okay, so Jeff put it in a really interesting way. So the player, in traditional gaming, as I've known it, the GM has the spoon, and you pick up the spoon, and you take the plot, and you feed it to the player, and the player eats it. And then all of a sudden, you give your player the spoon, and say, hey, here's the spoon.
And they're like, I can't feed myself. I don't know what to do.
Yes. And there's this panic moment, and it's crazy. Now, certain players will just freak. They'll just be like, I don't know what to do. And you need to just ask them leading questions. Usually, it's on the character sheet. Where they want to go is on the character sheet. So 2 things about kickers. I like to be bold, you know? Don't start, be bold. Go for it. And I'm not saying everybody doesn't need to be bold.
Right.
I mean, a good kicker can be, you know, there's an answering machine message from my wife that I come home to. And for some players, that'll work.
Right.
That's all you need. But man, you know, I like kickers where you have the king's head in your hand and you're dripped with gore and the guards walk in. Bam! Go for it. Some players don't like to do that. So
a kicker is a situation that really forces the player to react.
It forces the player to react. It interests the player to react. I don't like to, let's move away from the word force. But yeah, okay. It's a situation that the player is into that is going to drive the rest of the game for them. You can have, and in Conspiracy of Shadows, we have group kickers.
Right.
Where at the end of each game, we get together and we say, hey guys, where do you want the next game to start? And we kind of brainstorm it all together. So that's more of a group kicker, where the group decides where they want to start their next game.
Right.
I like to make it a dramatic moment. Make it the most dramatic moment of that character's life. You know? That's where the camera goes on. That's where things start. So for God's sakes, don't make it a day where, you know, I open up and there's no cereal left. What? You know, come on, let's do it. You know, and I'm not saying you don't need to have the king's head in your hand and be dripping with gore.
But if you open the box of cereal and a gremlin jumps out and latches onto your face,
something, or there's a dead gremlin in there, or there's a finger, or and it's a ring that you recognize from your old frat, or something that gets you into it. And when players first get it, I think there's a reason why a lot of players, when they first get that kind of power, really shy away from it.
Right.
Because when they've tried to do things like this in the past, they've been slapped around. They've said, you know, they've gone to the GM and they've said, hey, I'd like to do this. And no, you can't do that. Or the other players kind of showed discomfort and disapproval.
Right.
So when you're introducing this concept, you kind of got to ease them into it. The way I'd like to do it is if I know there's one player who's going to rock the kicker, I go to them first. So you start with your strong player. You start with them when you're making it. If you're making a kicker in a group, or you're making it in email, start with your strongest player. And that way they can model the behavior. Modeling behavior is a huge way to teach in gaming. That's the way most of us learned.
Right.
I mean, I know I didn't read a rule book until I was probably in college. or at least late high school.
Oh my God.
Yeah, dude. I would watch the other players. They would kind of show me what to do, and you learn through modeling. Kickers are, I think, a great way to learn kickers and to learn new gaming concepts is you go to your strength. If you know there's a player who has done kickers before, go to them. And furthermore, when they play out their kicker, start with them. So you know that they're going to show the other gamers how you would like what style you would like your game played in. So yeah, start with your strength, be bold, make it the most interesting moment in that character's life to you. And it's player authored. I don't even want to hear about GM authored kickers. That makes no sense. You're drunk. What are you, drunk? No, that is not a kicker. That's the player starting an opening. That's the GM starting an opening scene. A perfectly valid way to start a game. But yeah.
But if you can, the GM should help the player come up with it by questioning.
Saying that it's player authored doesn't mean the GM sits there with duct tape over their mouth, sitting on their hands. The GM is an active part of the deal. Matter of fact, all the players should be an active part of the deal.
Right.
This should be a big talk.
Group effort.
Yeah, it should be a big group effort. And sometimes you wanna talk about how to link kickers.
Now I know that this is difficult for some players who aren't used to having that. Again, back to the spoon, used to having that type of control.
Right.
Because I know when I brought this to some of my players before, they kind of look at me like, "What?
Right.
You want me to do something with my character that
right.
I'm not in control here. You're the GM, man. You tell me what to react to."
Exactly.
So I don't know. I think it really takes to bring somebody new into this. I think it takes.
If you've got someone who's been into traditional gaming for a long time and is very uncomfortable changing their ways, this can be a little difficult. But just ease them into it. No pressure, easy. Tell them. Just ask. Where do you want to start this? And then just get more and more specific until you've kind of fashioned this opening scene. Johnny can be very reticent. My girlfriend Johnny can be very reticent to make characters and to give input. And I just ask questions. And now she's a pro. Now she's going to squinch up her face when she hears this. But now she, I think, has a better idea of what kind of character she likes to play.
Right.
And I think is much more adept at it.
I think this is part of being a good game master too, storyteller, whatever you want to call it, is getting your players to help know their characters more.
Absolutely.
Through your questions, through your game, through your story, through
and hopefully all the clues you need for what they really want is on the character sheet already.
Right.
If you're playing D&D and they've made a thief who's got their move silently maxed out, they're looking to do some stealthing. So if you're using kickers in a traditional D&D game, maybe that's where you want to start.
Right.
Look at their character sheet. The
concept is a real big key for starting out.
The character sheet is, whether it is or not, whether it formally is or not, the character sheet is the player's letter to the GM saying, hey, this is really what I think is cool.
Right.
And look at that. They're telling you something. They're writing you a letter.
I want to play the drow with 2 scimitars, Judd.
Okay, Jeff, you can do that. Just go outside the house.
Oh, come on, man.
Okay.
Don't tell me no.
Okay, you can play that in our modern Black Ops game. Sure, you can absolutely do that.
All right.
Good for you, Jeff. Okay, let's move on to our next topic.
Awesome. That was great. Kickers.
You feel like all right. And if you have any questions about kickers, or you think I'm full of excrement, or you just don't quite get it, I'm going to post some threads on our links. There's one particular thread that I really liked, where players I was on a forum and one person would come up with a kicker, and then the next person who posted would come up with bangs based on that kicker. And it's called "You Kick, We Bang," and I think it's a really cool thread for kickers.
Nice.
So I will put that up. I will put up a couple of kicker threads on the links.
All right, Judd, you brought it up, man. Now we got to tell people what's a bang.
Dude, you'll have to wait till show number 12 for bangs, or 13 actually, because we've got.
Ooh.
No, wait a minute.
It's 12. It'll be 12. Yeah.
It'll be 12.
All right.
We'll talk about bangs later.
All right. Shall we go to GM Tools?
Rock it out. It's GMs Tools with Jeff.
All right. This show for GM's Tools, we're going to talk about maps.
Maps are so cool.
And specifically what I have for GM's Tools this time is a few programs for making maps for your game.
And we will have links to those programs.
Yes, absolutely. Now you can sit down at your table with a blank piece of paper, hand somebody a pencil, grab one yourself, and just start drawing. And that's cool. That's fine. But I specifically looked at a few programs. The first of which is called Campaign Cartographer. Have you ever heard of this?
I've heard about that.
Okay.
I hear it's a little difficult to use.
Yeah, I ended up buying the software probably about a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it does take a little while to get used to.
All right. Let's cut to the chase. How have you used this campaign cartographer in your game? What has it done at the table?
What has it done at the table? Well, aside from making maps.
Yeah, I want to know a specific map and specifically how it was used in one of your games.
Okay. Personally, when I make a setting, in the past I've made up these maps.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't always involved my players with that because I've come up with some sort of setting and I make this map and I bring it to the table. That way they kind of get a picture of what it is, where it is that we're playing.
Maps are a powerful tool for setting creation, absolutely.
Later on, I'll usually add stuff, like let's say a character makes a castle somewhere or they find some cool place. And then I'll put that stuff on later.
Yeah.
Like you can see behind me. I'm sorry the podcast won't show this, but there's a map behind me that I use Campaign Cartographer for.
And you whip that out at the table?
No. Well, I whipped that out with a couple of the game masters for the game at the table.
Gotcha.
Yeah, with a laptop in front of us and, talking about where we wanted stuff placed, et cetera,
cool.
et cetera. And the program is awesome. You could do some really great stuff, some, like you see in, D&D books or other books as well. You can really make some professional looking maps with that program.
All right. I want to know a little more about what you've done with maps at the table. So, okay, you've run a game, you've created a setting. Now, do the players know about the setting or do you hand them the map in order to set the setting at the first game?
Usually it will be a combination of the map as well as whatever I write up about the game. Mm-hmm. I usually make up some sort of like teaser, to get them interested in the game,
right? And
then if they bite, then I'll show them the map. Here's where we are. Here's where we're gonna play. Da, 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 da.
And can the players look at the map and be like, "Ooh, I want to be from here"?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And actually, I find one of the best things about a map, specifically with character creation, is it gives you an opportunity to really go into depth about the world. They could say, okay, well, I want to be from here. What's that place like?
Oh, okay.
And then you can go into, there's another city over here, and there's trade between them, and there's some bad guys that live over here, and et cetera, et cetera.
I have found in my experience with maps that when players ask questions about the maps, I end up creating things that I hadn't even thought of. When the players ask questions, I'm like, well, I really hadn't thought of that. And I end up coming up with things that were not in the world before they asked, because it just wasn't something that I had seen as interesting. And the players are fascinated by this one corner that, I hadn't even noticed.
Yeah, recently I have been involving players in making maps for the game. And
how does that work?
One of the things I found really neat about that is that exactly what you're saying. They will come up with some stuff that you don't even think of.
Right.
And them being involved with it and the placement of stuff really gives them the ability to be familiar with this world that you're putting them into.
And invested. Like when they're saving a world that they help make.
Yeah, they know it better. Yeah. They know it better.
And they like it better. They want to save it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Rock on.
So you can check out Campaign Cartographer at www.profantasy.com. We'll put a link to that in the show.
Okay.
And I have a couple of other ones too here.
Rock on. I'd like to talk about my map program that I came up with when I was young too.
Oh, really?
When you're done, I've got it's called Teabag. I'll tell you about it.
Teabag?
It's not as profane as that sounds.
Okay. Another one, and there are lots and lots of map making programs out there. Some of them are free. Some of them are, pretty pricey.
What's next?
The next is...
And how much does Campaign Cartographer, how much did that set you back?
When I got it, it was... I don't want to say. I don't remember off the top of my head. It wasn't cheap, though.
Right.
I mean, it was like...
50? 100?
It was somewhere between 50 and $100.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. What's next?
So the next one is a little program I found called Interactive Dungeon.
Uh-huh.
Now, for those of you who are used to like playing on, maps, grid maps, this program's pretty cool. And, it's not like the best program in the world, but basically you make up your map and you get this little guy that you can move around in it, and it makes like noise like it's walking, and you can set it to, not show all the rooms so the players can't see it.
Right.
And
have you used it?
I have actually used it in a couple of
Really?
games. I've even played it in some games where somebody used it. So like you're walking through this dungeon, let's say,
Right.
and like when you step on a trap or whatever,
It asks you to make a roll?
It'll ask you to make a roll. It'll make a noise,
Here's something I'm mentioning, Jeff. When you use that program, do you find yourself describing things less because the players... Because I find one downfall to using maps for me is I find we get a chess syndrome where the players will have their heads down on the map and will be moving around. And even after like a combat... Because I used to take out... Sometimes I'll take out a map when I'm in a combat.
Right.
Occasionally. So I had a Riddle of Steel game where there was a combat going on. And we used the map just to get an idea of where everyone was for the combat.
Right.
And then once combat was over, I had players still role-playing to the map and moving their characters around like chess pieces. And I had to like put the map away.
Right,
and
right.
I, as a GM, I've got to say I stifled it. I was like, oh, step away from the map, guys. Look up at each other. Don't talk to each other's miniatures. So do you find that with this interactive dungeon?
Yeah, I did actually find that happened. The person who's using the program basically makes the whole map, and they write in the descriptions that pop up and set the monster encounters and all that stuff.
Right.
So I do think it does kind of take that out of the DM's hands a little bit.
Right. And but you know what? Maybe some game design needs to be, maybe that head down towards the miniature. Maybe that's a game thing that hasn't been tapped quite yet. I mean, I know the new D&D is
there's
a little
miniature.
I'm just interested in that. I'm really interested in that. And there was moments after the combat where players were still looking at the minis and still moving their characters around. And I wonder. I don't know. I feel like there's something that I as a GM stifled because I was uncomfortable with it, and that's interesting to me. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I made the right choice or what, but they just weren't playing in the style that I was comfortable with, and I kind of put the kibosh on it. What a jerk.
We've all made mistakes, man.
I don't know if it was a mistake, but just interesting. I just find that interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And it came out right here on the air. What else?
So we'll have a link to that on the show as well. And there's another program called Fractal Map Maker. Now I have no experience with this one. I looked at it, and the images that I saw were beautiful, and you could certainly make some beautiful ones like that with Campaign Cartographer. But I just wanted to throw something else out there as well for people to look at. But you can get that at rpgnow.com.
Very nice.
And we'll put a link to all these things on the show notes.
Can I talk about Teabag?
Yeah. Tell me about Teabag, Judd.
Teabag is when I was 13, and my friend Jim, who was a bit older than me, I think he was like 21 when I was 13, so he was GMing. And he blew our minds by handing us a map. And it was an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper that he had burned the edges of. So it was like mysterious and stuff. And he had dyed it in like a T, a T.
Right.
And so it was like
paper look
crumpled.
older.
And it was like we had this relic from another world. It was nuts. We all went berserk. We were just like, oh my God. Like we flipped our minds. And so when I would GM, that was one of the first things I would do is make up the map and then spend long hours with these vats of water. God bless my mother for putting up with this garbage. These like vats of water with paper in it, like, tea water. And I'd like dye it just the right consistency, and then I'd burn the edge. And my mom, she was great. And I'd, burn the edges and make these little artifacts to hand to the players. And it's something that I have carried through to kind of to this day. I really love the making of that map.
I just have to say here that your mom is like the coolest gamer mom.
She's no, she totally is. No doubt. It's funny, yeah.
But maps, man. And what this comes down to, I think, is like props for your game. Really, is what this is.
It absolutely is, and it also gives the players, like Trollbabe uses it too. Ron Edwards' Trollbabe uses maps as a big part of after you create a character, you point to the map and say, "This is where I want to start. I'm walking into this town." And that's a big deal, and the players get to kind of pick, and the names are all kind of loaded with something, they're loaded with drama and feel, and they're dripping with the vibe of the world. So yeah, the players are kind of the GM's way of saying, hey, this is what my world is about. This is kind of what I'd like the game to be about, and that's really neat. And they can be about the players too. I have found that with my map making, the players have picked apart, where it'll be like the city of Ulula, and they'll say, well, what's that? And I'll say, oh, Ulula, I named it Latin for owl, which is Ulula, and it's a city ruled by paladins who worship an owl totem.
Nice.
And they'll be like, oh, wow, I want to make a paladin of Ulula. And I'll be like, oh, okay. And they'll just whole cloth make up stuff about Ulula and the creation of their character. And bam, Ulula is now a place, and they kind of created it. I named it, I put it on the map.
Right.
But the player really, really fleshed it out. And stuff like that is really cool. It's fun when I get players who really pick a part of the map and kind of adopt it. It's like those not old, but like the Adopt a Highway programs.
Right.
It's like adopt a part of the map and just go for it and make it your own.
So really, I mean, these things are really just drawing people into the world that their characters are playing in.
It goes back to the 7 types of intelligence. It's like different people learn in different ways.
Right.
Some people want a story. Some people want to read a couple paragraphs of text. Some people want a blurb. And other people, they want to see it. They want a visual thing to look at and hold and touch. And that's really important. I think you and I today have just like skimmed the surface of the importance of maps.
Yeah.
It's a really neat thing.
I think this is touching on some other things too that would be really interesting to talk about.
Yeah.
Maybe our next show.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
We need to start wrapping this up.
Okay.
I'm running out of time.
All right, so we're not going to...
Sorry to be like the voice of doom.
That's okay. Do you want to talk about... Should I talk about forums real fast? Or?
You know what? Why don't we save that for next show?
Okay. Sounds good.
And I think that pretty much covers it, Judd.
Oh, man, it was so nice to be back.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I've missed this.
It's nice.
All right, well, thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, we hope you enjoyed the show.
If you have any comments, please email us at sonsofkryos@yahoo.com. I know everyone who has emailed us, I've returned their email. So that is sonsofkryos@yahoo.com.
And let me just say that, Judd, I want to thank you for answering all the emails.
Dude.
Because I don't have time to do that. So for any of you who do send us emails, you're going to get the response from Judd. I'm sorry. I'm so busy I don't have time, and I really, really appreciate him taking the time to do that.
It's not quite the least I could do, but it's close. Like everything you're hearing right now, the XML feed, the iTunes, the fact that you can download this, like if this was me, I would be like throwing cassette tapes out my window, and that's how you'd have to hear this podcast. Like, so everything else is Jeff. So yes,
awesome.
I do the email, and Jeff does everything else but talk for me. So thank you, Jeff, for doing all the like being a total self-taught computer guy and doing all this stuff. It's really great. I'm really in awe.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks everybody for listening.
Thanks for listening.